Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing, start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Hello and welcome back to Selling from the Heart. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, what isn't going on? Great seeing you. We're in for a treat today. You know what? I say that all the time when we have guests on the Selling from the Heart podcast, but we're in for a really special treat today, Daryl.
Absolutely. We've got a powerhouse of sales leadership right here in the studio with us. Can't wait for you to meet Kelley Hippler. Thank you, by the way, to everybody who's out there waving the flag around Selling from the Heart. 2026 is going to be the best year yet. And this growing community of sales leaders and sales professionals all over the world who say, hey, I'm all in on Selling from the Heart. That's me. We're glad you're here. And we love this community of friends right out here that are Selling from the Heart listeners.
Absolutely. So I have to give a special shout out because it's through this person I met Kelley Hippler. So I want to give a shout out to Jamie Diglio because, hey, she's been on the podcast before, but she was the one who introduced me to Kelley. I'm so thankful for you, Jamie. Thank you for being a true Selling from the Heart champion.
Yeah, Jamie, you are a rock star. Well, today's guest is a powerhouse in the world of sales leadership, a leader who knows that the path to sustainable growth always begins with people. Kelley Hippler is a seasoned chief revenue officer with over 20 years of global commercial leadership experience, known for driving measurable, sustainable revenue growth and transforming sales organizations from the inside out. Kelley is a strategic, data-driven, people-first leader who believes in achieving ambitious goals through thoughtful planning, relentless execution, and clear communication. Her leadership mantra says it all: people, plan, align, execute, and win. During her 23-year career at Forrester Research, including 5 years as chief sales officer, Kelley led the company to 51% growth, achieving record-breaking results of $538 million in revenue and $1.13 billion market cap, a testament to her ability to balance strategic precision with human-centered leadership. And she's here with us today. Kelley, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's great to have you here.
Oh, great to be here, Daryl and Larry. So appreciative to be here. Big fan of the show. And so really excited for the conversation today.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us.
It's going to be fun. And as we get started, Kelley, you know the question every guest on Selling from the Heart answers, and that is, what does Selling from the Heart mean to you?
Sure. So for me, selling from the heart really comes down to leading with authenticity and not an agenda, right? It's about showing up as a human being first, being curious, committed to learning about what the other person is going through and building that trust before you even start talking about yourself, your product, your solutions. And I think the best sellers I've come across in my career weren't just quota crushers, but they were actually culture carriers. And so I think that there is that intent of serving your client, understanding that every purchase, there is a buyer on the other end who sometimes is putting their career on the line to buy your product and service. And so it's somebody who really never loses sight of the person on the other side of the deal.
Mm.
Oh, this is so wonderful. I got to zero in on something you just said, and I haven't heard it used like that before. Culture carrier. Walk us through that.
Sure, and yeah, it's actually you'll start to see my my love of sports coming through this, and it was a phrase that I actually heard a professional football coach use when actually talking about drafting Drake May, who's now the quarterback for the New England Patriots. And at the time, they were talking about really wanting somebody who could help build and carry a culture and be an addition to that, as opposed to just showing up, being focused on yourself and doing your job. But it's when you're thinking about beyond your own purview and what's in it for you, but you're thinking about your team, you're thinking about your company, you're thinking about your clients, and really helping to carry those values forward. And so thought it was a great quote when I heard it. Actually hadn't heard it before when describing a player. And so just love that. And per usual, picked it up and ran with it. Yes, my co-pilot tells me I lean on sports analogies a little too much when I ask for feedback. And so I'm sure I will hear about this the next time I ask for additional coaching from co-pilot.
Well, we think it's impossible for you to lean on sports analogies too
Yeah.
much. It's selling from the heart. But I love this leadership mantra. Everybody wants to win. I think every sales professional, every sales leader, and certainly every executive wants the team to execute. But there's some things that come before executing and winning in your leadership mantra. And I love how this model begins with people.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there just really needs to be more of an acknowledgement and understanding that your people at the end of the day are the ones who drive your results. And so, I may be a chief revenue officer, but I'm not the one driving revenue, right? It's our reps, it's our CSMs, it's our BDRs. And so really putting those human beings front and center is so critical. And it means just acknowledging the role they play, B, making sure that you're building trust, being transparent, communicating in a way that's authentic, and then being relentlessly focused on removing the roadblocks that slow people down from being able to do their jobs, whether it's a process that needs to be changed, whether there's a technology that can help, but really viewing yourself as like, my job is to pave the way, to clear the path, to free up more time so that sellers can actually spend more time with their clients. And I know we sort of touched on the Forrester background, and we used to do time activity studies when I was at Forrester, which are essentially diary exercises with the sales team. And probably less than a third of a salesperson's time is actually spent directly dealing with clients. And there's a lot of, administrivia that happens. And so part of how I viewed my job was identifying the biggest places where we were losing time. And then you sort of put processes in. And part of the annual planning process would be, okay, what barriers are we going to take down? What are we going to eliminate so that our teams can actually spend more time with clients, which obviously drives client satisfaction, but it also improves the employee experience because they're not being slowed down by a lot of the administrative stuff that we know salespeople don't tend to gravitate towards. And so really wanting to focus on freeing up as much time as you can to be with clients and prospects was something that I always focus on, but also making sure that you're not trying to fix 100 things at once, because I did that when I first became CSO and nearly broke my team, and really learned that you also have to pace the changes out, focus on things that can have a really high impact, because sales is always on the clock. And I think also understanding there's only so much change and transition that you can put through a sales system while people are still being asked to sell and serve their clients was also a big learning I had after my first couple of years as a CSO.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I really like this. I got to I swore I wasn't going to do this. I already said I wasn't going to bring any sports analogies. I made a mental note of that, but I already breaking my own promise. Sales is always on the clock.
Oh yeah.
I love that. You have to peel this one back.
Oh, absolutely. And so, I think part of this came from there would be times when I would get a meeting dropped on my calendar, either the last day of the month or the last day of a quarter. And then you'd find out it was, somebody in, say, marketing, product, or some other function who had a goal to sit down with me at some point in the quarter and waited until sort of the last day. And just, I think sometimes people don't recognize that, sales always has a number. Time is limited, right? At best case, your sellers have 2,000 hours a year. And so anytime that time is spent doing something that's not helping to advance the business, it is time lost. And so kind of going back to the NFL draft where you get, what is it, 10 minutes between picks. Sales is literally always on the clock. I actually had a great sales manager I worked with, and literally the first day of every quarter, whether his team hit plan or missed plan, he was erasing all the numbers on the whiteboard and putting the quotas up for the next quarter. And he would say, "What have you done for me lately?" Because, you turn the page and you're literally onto the next, because the numbers never stop and time is your most limited resource. And so that was an analogy that I tried to use to help others in the business to understand that, sales is always feeling that pressure. So, like the last week or two of the year when we're trying to close out the fiscal year and most of your ecosystem is off celebrating the holidays with their families, et cetera, sometimes you have to explain that there's a little bit of a different physics for sales folks.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So people first, we've got a plan and a line inside this. And as we're, this new year is upon us, got sales leaders and business owners listening into this. And this alignment, getting things aligned inside your organization, what would you say to leaders that are listening in regarding the importance of alignment as we head into this year?
Absolutely. So I think alignment is critical, not just within a sales organization, but across your revenue engine, right? So talking about marketing, product, customer success, and sales really do need to be aligned. I do think it's one of those phrases and things that people like to say, but it's actually really hard to do in practice. And again, going back to my Forrester experience, we had a template that literally was called a plan on a page. And it sort of starts with, what are the company's goals? What are the key actions you're going to take? How are you going to measure it? And what are your interdependencies? And what we started to do over the fullness of time was we would build them across all the functional areas, sit down and make sure that we were all aligned. What percentage of pipeline was marketing going to contribute to? If we assumed that there was going to be a pricing change to our products to help drive growth, what was product going to commit to add value, et cetera, so that we could make sure that we had a bottoms up plan that laddered up to the tops down. And what became really powerful was we got to a point where during sales kickoff, each of us during our presentations, whether it was sales, marketing, or product, shared our plan on a page with the global sales organization. So we weren't just saying we were aligned, but we were actually showing the commitment that we had all made to one another. And then what was also great about having those plans is it then gave us a chance to say, because, across a global sales organization, there are, thousands of ideas that are always blooming. And not that any of them are bad, but you just have to prioritize your resources. And so what it would allow me to do is sort of say, when someone came to me and said, "Hey, can we do X, Y, or Z?" I would say, "Okay, here are 4 priorities. Is that going to help us do a better job of increase the likelihood that we're going to get to our company plan this year? And if so, which of these 4 things should I take off to free up space?" And in most cases, it was like, well, no, not really. And so we'd put it in a parking lot, but it also really helped with just staying focused on the task at hand. And then sort of second year was so successful, we actually started to do these at the geographic level. So we did one for Europe, did one for Asia, and just to help make sure that all of the resources, again, product, marketing, sales, and CS were just aligned across the board. And it just took so much friction out of the system when you do have those plans, and really allowed us to operate at a much higher level with them.
You know what's interesting about all this is, at a larger scale, you have familiarity with this on a larger scale, but I see this same philosophy that you just shared playing out in small and medium-sized businesses that may not have the vast amount of people that you were familiar with at Forrester. But, I'm thinking of that executive and that president of a company that may only have a couple departments and may only have 50, 60 people. This becomes even more mission critical to have alignment.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're right. You can't afford not to have. I mean,
Yes.
people are stretched so thin that I agree with you 100%, Larry. It's probably even more helpful to do with a smaller organization because the options in terms of, who you're going to sell to, what's your ICP, like all of those things could be so spread across the map that it's a great way to, get everyone aligned and rowing in the same direction.
So one of the things, just shifting gears a little bit, I just love to think about today's buyer together. I remember years ago being deeply impacted by Forrester Research that had told us a huge part of the buyer's decision had been done from research on the internet. And of course, we're like, the internet. And now, the internet is 30 years old. But we keep seeing these trends in terms of buyer behavior changing. And you've had a front row seat to a lot of this. As we're sitting here at the beginning of 2026 now, what do you see happening with today's buyer and what should sales professionals be thinking?
Yeah, no, there are a couple of, dramatic changes that continue to sort of shape go-to-market, Daryl. And I would say the first one being some of the latest stats that I've seen are that your buyer is as much as 80% of the way through the journey before they ever reach out to your organization. And I think that has huge implications for both sales as well as for marketing, because in most cases, your buyers are going to interact with your marketing content, your website, perhaps what peers in their network are saying about your products and services. And so really working with marketing to, leverage marketing throughout every stage of the process. I know a lot of teams have kind of adopted the revenue bow tie. And I think we've really evolved away from marketing's at the top of the funnel, putting leads in, and then sales processes them, and then a client comes out at the other end. I really think marketing and sales need to be aligned at every stage of the process now, because so much of what your buyer is getting, they're getting from marketing material first before they ever step up and interact with your sellers. I think other implications there as well are your reps are getting fewer at bats. And so I think leaning on things, whether it's role plays, which I know sales reps hate, but there's some great AI tools out there that actually allow your sellers to practice, online by themselves, get feedback, get the coaching, because I think moving forward, reps are going to have fewer opportunities. And so really making sure that people are prepared and they've done their homework, they understand the buyer situation, the company, any triggers that are out there, so that they can maximize those at bats is going to become even more critical, because I think sizes of pipelines are going to shrink. And I saw a stat recently that win rates are down to about 18%. So when you think about what that means from how much pipeline you have to generate, I think a lot of us are used to dealing with like a 3-to-1 coverage ratio, or maybe even a 4-to-1, but now you're talking 5+to-1. That is a lot of pipeline to generate and can be a little daunting there. So I think also making sure that leaders are continuing to help their team members to skill build and give them that coaching and feedback, whether it's, again, through a coaching tool or leaders joining calls, listening in on calls, listening to recorded calls, and providing that feedback, because folks are going to have fewer opportunities to convert deals moving forward. And buyers are getting harder to reach, I think, as we all know. So I guess the third point would be making sure that you're focusing on teaching your team best practices on social selling as well, because email's not dead, but you can't just rely on, spamming the world anymore and expecting there to be enough coming inbound to fill your pipeline. So I think those are sort of three of the big dynamics that we've been taking a look at and focusing on within our team.
Oh, I gotta hone in on these quality at bats, because you're speaking baseball language, which I absolutely love.
We can't escape the sports, folks.
I can't escape the sports, but there's an absolute play on this quality at bats, and I want us to think about this. Whether you're a sales leader, sales professional, or you're in executive leadership, when your salespeople get in front of that buyer, insert titles of all these people that they're going to have these conversations with, this quality at bats transitions into you got to have quality business conversation. If that
Yes.
person's well into their journey and then you get a seat at that table, that's the quality at bat. That means you got to bring some substance and some goods to that conversation. Or guess what? You're going to strike out, exit stage right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%. And again, and because the buyers have already done their homework, they know about your products and services, probably in some cases better than some of the reps they're speaking to. And so it really is, have you done your homework? Do you understand, the situation and the likely needs, as well as who is going to be involved in the process? Because I think other stats that we see are around, the continuing proliferation of the buying committee, which I think on average is up to 8 or plus buyers as well. So it's not even just, you can't even afford to be single threaded, right? You've got to know who are all of the players who are likely to participate. What are their potential pain points, objections before you step into that room? Because odds are you're only going to get one chance to be able to advance that process.
Well, I think that data point that you brought up, about 18% of stuff in the pipeline is likely to close. There's a level of that is like really terrifying. Like when you look at that and you go, oh my goodness. And I think, if it's 1 in 5 deals are going to close, I think business owners, sales leaders, and sales professionals, we got to have a mirror moment to go, what are we going to do about this? Like that, number one, are we even tracking that? But number two, what are we going to do? And I'm curious, what do you think sales teams need to be doing to increase the win rate? Because 1 in 5 is not a very sustainable situation.
Yeah, you're right, Daryl. It's not sustainable and it's very costly. And when I see a stat like that, it really makes me wonder, what is the degree to which a company truly understands what their ideal client profile is and have equipped their teams to go after it? Like, to me, that is more of likely just, chasing a lot of business and opportunities versus having a clearly defined, this is who we can help. This is how we can help them. And so I think that potentially does go back to the alignment in terms of, is the executive team, our marketing and sales aligned on who we want to go after, who are our best customers, who are we best suited to serve? Because to be at those rates, you're probably just chasing a lot of things that probably aren't a great fit. And I know oftentimes, reps can feel under the gun. They're expected to generate X number of opportunities per week. And I also think that when teams are operating under some of these activity metrics and feel like they're under a microscope, it forces them to, put things in that may not be of high quality. And one of the things, and I remember one of my best reps that I had at Forrester saying this, that he works harder to disqualify opportunities than he does to qualify them. Like, he wants a buyer to prove to them like that they're serious and why he should continue to spend his time working with them. But I think if you do have folks that are in an organization or a place where there are just expectations around activity and they know that Friday report is going out, I think also sometimes it can lead to not high quality things making its way into the pipeline. And so I think it's probably a combination of some of those things as well. I think, as we know, if you put a metric out there, you're going to have some folks within an organization that might get there a creative way versus doing it through a quality way that's going to get to the ultimate outcome that you're looking for.
I really liked this qualify, disqualify. And if more people can do this up front, watch what starts to happen. I love this whole play on disqualify. Just disqualify as fast as possible so that you have qualified stuff in your pipeline. I bet you if that just happened, you probably see a remarkable increase. That 1 in 5 probably becomes maybe 2 in 5 or 3 in 5. I'm just throwing the numbers out for conversation's sake, but I like that you brought up this whole disqualification part up front.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember having a conversation with a chief people officer who I was working with once, and she took a call with a salesperson about a tool that's designed for HR folks. And I said, well, we don't have any budget. And she's like, I know, but I didn't want to be mean and not take the call. And I was like, taking the call is the worst thing you can do. You are wasting that person's time. You're giving them hope that there's a sale. And again, I think sometimes people want to be polite. They don't want to turn somebody down. And I think for those of us who are in sales, when we're dealing with other salespeople, like we recognize, that is their most valuable thing. Or if I say, yes, I'm going to evaluate that, that's going in someone's pipeline somewhere. And, it becomes, something on the radar, and a manager is going to talk to the rep about it, et cetera. And so I know sometimes people want to be nice, or they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But the worst thing you can do is sort of string a salesperson along if you're, not really committed to the process or the evaluation, or if it's not the right time. The best thing you can do is let a seller know, so that they're not wasting their time and can go find the next opportunity.
Oh, that's so true. Well, hey, as we're looking forward into this year and just thinking about the sales leaders and the executives and business owners that are listening in, what advice or encouragement would you give to leaders as we look forward into the year ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we look into the year ahead, I think that there's obviously a lot of buzz around AI and other tools, but I do think there is a role at a place that AI and other tools can really play in helping to remove those barriers that prevent teams from being successful. And so I know for me personally, a lot of the tools that I'm looking at are ones that, help with pulling presentations together or research on a client or triggers, as well as the coaching tools. And, also being clear with my team, like, we're not going to replace you. And, this is all about making your job easier so you can be more productive. And our goal is to get everybody to 100% of plan. So I think it's not only exploring AI, but being transparent with your teams about what that means. Because I think as we know, it's hard enough to get people to change behavior, adopt new tools, right? You always have to slow down before you can start to go fast. And if you have that added concern that, am I just going to be training my replacement here if I teach this AI what I know, I think it's going to slow adoption down even more. So I think, being transparent with your teams about what is the game plan where it comes to technology or other things. And, hopefully people can authentically say, we're investing in this. We're not going to add to the size of the sales force, or we're going to grow the sales force more slowly because we want the people we have to be more successful and we want more people to get to quota. I think that really creates an opportunity to build a win-win. I still hear leaders out there that are using the, throw more bodies on the pile as the way to grow. And I think there's a much more strategic way to do it that's not only good for your sellers, but creates a better customer experience because your sellers are spending more time actually working with the clients to help solve their problems. And I definitely encourage folks to lean in. On the opposite side, I have heard leaders saying, we now have to write a business case to justify why we should backfill ahead and not use AI to do that. And I just think if companies start to get into that situation, I think that there's really an opportunity to lose a lot of trust with your sellers. And I think this is a great moment in time to really focus on your seller success rates. The more your sellers win, the more your company wins, the more your clients win. And I would just encourage folks as they're building plans to think about it through that lens.
It goes back to the very first P. It's people.
Yeah.
It's growing people.
Yeah.
Just grow.
That's right.
Let's take all these wonderful tools that we all have now and help grow your people with those tools, not have those tools replace your people.
That's right. That's so good.
Absolutely.
Well, Kelley, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today and your expertise. It's been a really a great conversation and so many things for our listeners to really think about and put into action. But I'm curious as we wrap up, I know so many people are thinking the same thing I'm thinking. How do I get more Kelley Hippler in my life?
Well, thank you. So yeah, best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So people are welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to continue the conversation with anyone, whether you're looking to drive alignment, build a plan, evaluating tools. Always love to knowledge share with others in the community. I just think it is a rising tide that lifts all boats. So always happy to collaborate with people.
Fantastic. So Kelley, thank you so much. This has been really, really excellent. Appreciate you.
Thank you both. Really appreciate the opportunity.
That's our pleasure.
Excellent. Larry, great conversations. Lots of things to think about, whether you're a sales leader, a producer, or running a company. And I want to go back to this, some of these numbers, and everyone's got to look at their own numbers. But if the average is 18% of stuff that's in the pipeline that's going to make it to the end, we got some serious work to do, to think about qualifying, to think about upskilling, to think about the type of talent we're bringing onto the team. And there's so many different angles, understanding our ideal client profile, making sure the company's aligned. This is the work. And if you've been putting this work off and kind of just been on cruise control, I think this is a bit of a wake up call to say, hey, right now we've got to get serious about thinking not just about, activity and more bodies and more people, but actual effectiveness.
Yeah, and I would just say this. This is my last play on sports analogies, Daryl. But but this is serious though.
Yeah.
I want sales leaders to think about this. Is when your sellers get up to the plate
Mhm.
and up to the plate, sitting at the business table with executives who can make that decision. Get that quality at bat, which means you got to bring some meaningful value. We talk about here at Selling from the Heart. You got to bring meaningful value. You got to bring meaningful business substance to that conversation. If
Mhm.
not, guess what? That pitch goes right by you and you strike out.
That's right. So I want to encourage everybody, this might be one to rewind and listen to, maybe even as a leadership team or as a sales team, go back through and take some notes and go, what are we going to do? What are we going to do differently? What do we need to improve? What needs to be aligned? What do we need to plan for? All of these things we've talked about today are so critical. Well, hey, thank you for listening today at Selling